The first COVID-19 vaccinations in San Diego County are underway. These are some of the frontline workers who received them. Why they say getting the shot is personal. Plus,
we just had to order 5,000 additional body bags they just purchased for the state.
California orders body bags and puts refrigerators on standby as COVID deaths surge. The dark tunnel Governor Newsom says we have to get through before we defeat this pandemic.
ABC 10 News at 5 starts now.
It felt like a big moment. It felt like I got to have a little small piece of something that felt pretty historic.
A sense of relief and excitement from one of the first local nurses to receive the COVID-19 vaccine, as San Diego County records its highest daily death toll from the pandemic yet. Good evening, I'm Lindsay Pena.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. Here are the latest numbers. 32 new deaths were reported today. That brings our total to just under 1,200. And more than 1,800 new cases were reported, bringing that total to more than 111,000. The numbers come just hours after Naval Medical Center, San Diego, and Rady Children's Hospital began to give the first doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. As ABC's Mimi Alcala explains, it's a big moment for the county.
It was exciting.
As hospitals across the county start receiving boxes of Pfizer's highly anticipated COVID-19 vaccine, Naval Medical Center San Diego was the first to vaccinate its frontline healthcare workers.
It kind of feels like it has this energy of perhaps the beginning of the final chapter of what has felt like a very long year for all of us.
Lieutenant junior grade Catherine Senoit is a staff nurse working in the emergency department at the Naval Medical Center, and she was the first there to roll up her sleeve and get that shot.
Band-Aid on, actually, yeah. But it feels like I have an obligation to do everything I can to ensure that I'm immune so I don't pass on anything to my patients.
Like many, Senoit was a little skeptical about a vaccine that was put out so quickly, but after doing much research, she says she was reassured.
Companies that have developed this vaccine have put a lot of work into ensuring the data to show people how hard that they work to make sure that this was rolled out safely.
After the injection, she says she was told to look out for any adverse reactions similar to other vaccines.
I'm going to give the first dose.
A couple of hours later, Rady Children's Hospital also started vaccinating some of the most at-risk personnel at the hospital.
I think this is a really important step for us to get back to some type of normalcy. We've seen lots of businesses and people and families be affected by this virus, and I think it's really important for us, especially as healthcare workers, to take a stand and be the first people to get the vaccine.
At this point, the vaccine is not mandatory for staff at either hospitals. Those who do get it will continue wearing masks, and 28 days later, they'll receive a second dose.
This is going to be a long process to roll out, so we still need to be really careful about wearing our masks, social distancing, and following all the guidelines by the CDC.
Mimi Alcala, ABC 10 News.
Other local hospitals do say they plan to start giving out the vaccines to their workers this week as well.
Teachers in the San Diego Union High School District are unhappy about a plan to welcome students back to campus after the new year. And right now, parents are slowly gathering before a school meeting because they don't think the plan goes far enough. ABC 10 News reporter Rachel Bianco shows us why the reaction is mixed.
It's the typical first day of school picture for Ethan and Aiden LaRoque in a year that has been anything but routine.
It's just been such a terrible travesty for these kids.
Lori LaRoque is among the parents pushing for 5-day-a-week in-person learning starting in January for the San Diego Union High School District. Her twins are in 8th grade at Pacific Trails Middle School. She saw the difference when one was back on campus, even in a modified version.
It was such an interesting litmus test.
When her son, who was at home, went back to campus, she says the difference was immediate.
He just went from being sort of despondent and frustrated at home, and his spirits lifted and he stood taller. He was excited to put his backpack on and actually step on campus.
But the California Teachers Association sent the district a cease and desist letter saying it is not safe for teachers to return to class while the county is in the purple tier.
We have 2 weeks of winter break where we know families will be traveling extensively, and it just doesn't make sense to come back immediately after those holidays.
The district says it will continue working towards the goal of providing a one-day-a-week in-person option beginning January 4th. More than 1,600 people have signed this petition saying the district's safety plan for reopening doesn't go far enough.
The district has maintained that if they are able to teach virtually, then they're able to come in and teach within the classroom in front of students.
If the district requires teachers back on campus, union leaders estimate 10%, or roughly 60 teachers, won't return. Rachel Bianco, ABC 10 News.
At tonight's board meeting, a newly elected trustee plans to ask the board to bring students back on campus full-time by the end of January. We'll let you know if there's a decision.
And while there's been lots of good news today about the rollout of the coronavirus vaccine, Governor Newsom is reminding Californians that we still have a long way to go. In fact, today he revealed the number of deaths has spiked so much the state has now had to order dozens of giant refrigerators and 5,000 more body bags. Some are being sent here to San Diego.
That should be sobering. I don't say that, I don't want people to run with that. I don't want people to scare folks. But this is a deadly disease. And we need to be mindful of where we are in this current journey together to the vaccine. We are not at the finish line yet.
Governor Newsom also revealed that California will be getting more than twice as much of the Pfizer vaccine this month than originally anticipated. He says the state will have more than 1 million total COVID vaccine doses before New Year. More than 6 million Californians have signed up so far to get phone alerts if they may have been exposed to the virus. Last week we told you when the state launched the new CA Notify system. UC San Diego helped develop that app. Once a person with COVID enters their information into the system, an alert is then sent to people who have been close to that person. Officials say the more people who sign up, the more useful that system will be to help get exposed people quickly into quarantine. And more hospitals across the U.S. are dispersing COVID-19 vaccines as the number of cases continues to rise. As ABC's Rena Roy explains, a record 110,000 people are currently hospitalized in the country with the virus.
Though there is hope on the horizon with vaccinations already underway at hospitals across the U.S., the current COVID-19 numbers are dire.
We are still in a terrible situation with the numbers.
On Monday, the U.S. topped 300,000 deaths, 17,000 in the last 7 days, 101 fatalities an hour, according to the COVID Tracking Project. Hospitals at or nearing capacity with a record number of COVID-19 patients.
Right now, we're so overwhelmed. We're working every way we can. Managers, supervisors, nurses, it's just we're all on autopilot at this point.
ICU capacity and staffing rapidly dwindling in Southern California.
We're going through perhaps the most intense and urgent moment since the beginning of this pandemic.
Dr. Carlos Araujo Presa in Texas fought the virus from the beginning, heading the ICU before getting sick himself and dying of COVID.
My dad loved his job and he loved working on the front line. He loved feeling that he could help people.
9 months into the pandemic, a sigh of relief from healthcare workers taking part in the largest vaccination effort in U.S. history. From Florida and Louisiana to Texas and Colorado. Those on the front lines in New Jersey speaking out after getting the shot.
I have 2 young boys that I remember the first wave, I couldn't hug them. So now I feel relieved that my children, I can go home and hug them and kiss them and not feel worried that I might be the one bringing them the virus.
Now, there is more good news on the vaccine front, with Moderna expected to get the same emergency use authorization as Pfizer after an FDA hearing on Thursday. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
And you can follow any developments surrounding the pandemic by downloading our free mobile app. Just go to the App Store and search 10 News.
We're learning more about the next steps after a teenager was arrested in connection with the murder of a Carlsbad woman stabbed to death while hiking a popular trail. As ABC 10 News reporter Michael Chen tells us, prosecutors will now decide whether that teen should be charged as an adult.
A violent death on a serene Carlsbad trail, a community outraged, and now an arrest. A 17-year-old teen from Carlsbad booked on murder charges weeks after 68-year-old Lori Thorberg was found stabbed to death along Hosp Grove Trail. Detectives tell ABC 10 News police work led them to the teenager before DNA evidence confirmed their suspicions. The teen now in juvenile hall, but will he stay there? Former district attorney turned defense attorney Paul Fink says prosecutors must now decide whether the accused should be tried as an adult.
An adult for a first-degree murder, 25 to life. A juvenile can only be kept until the age of 25.
A decade ago, Finks represented Heather Doust, who at the age of 14 killed her mother with a hammer. Doust was charged as an adult, pleaded guilty, and was sentenced to 16 years to life. Finks says unlike in that case, thanks to new state laws, if prosecutors do charge the 17-year-old as an adult in the Carlsbad case, a judge will have the final say.
The more dangerous that person is, the more likely they are to be charged as an adult.
Fink says the biggest factor is the crime itself.
Is the act such that it demonstrates such a wanton disregard for life and for people around them that person needs to be confined?
Fink says the background of the suspect will be scrutinized.
Whether they've been involved in a lot of gang activity, prior acts of violence, prior acts of rebellion.
Police in the Carlsbad case declined to say if the teen has a criminal history. Fink says an extensive background check is likely underway as prosecutors weigh their decision.
What does the protection of the community require? Longer incarceration, or does it require juvenile attempts at rehabilitation?
Michael Chen, ABC 10 News.
A detention hearing has been set for Thursday in juvenile court. Several studies show the number of juveniles being charged as adults in California has dropped significantly in the past decade.
President-elect Joe Biden is continuing his calls for unity one day after the Electoral College voted to confirm his victory in the November election. As ABC's Alex Prochet shows us, Biden traveled to Georgia today for a post-election rally.
President-elect Joe Biden's victory is official. Yesterday's Electoral College vote was the exclamation point on results reported since early November. Now, the president-elect is looking to unite the country.
The integrity of our elections remains intact. And now it's time to turn the page, as we've done throughout our history, to unite, to heal.
But Biden also gave his strongest rebuke yet of President Trump and Trump's allies' brazen efforts to overturn the election results and make Trump the president.
The court sent a clear signal to President Trump that there would be no part of an unprecedented assault on our democracy.
That includes 126 Republican members in the House and 17 states' attorneys general who signed on to a lawsuit filed by the state of Texas asking the Supreme Court to reject the certified votes of 4 key battleground states Trump lost.
It's a position so extreme, we've never seen it before. A position that refused to respect the will of the people, refused to respect the rule of law, and refused to honor our Constitution.
Now, there's growing focus on GOP leaders in Washington who still have not recognized Biden's victory. Top Trump advisor Stephen Miller even saying this on Fox.
In the Constitution is January 20th. So we have more than enough time to right the wrong.
But even the Senate Majority Leader is starting to accept reality.
The Electoral College has spoken. So today I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden. The President-elect is no stranger to the Senate. He's devoted himself to public service for many years.
I called him to thank him for the congratulations. Told him, although we disagree on a lot of things, there's things we can work together on.
Notably, McConnell's acknowledgement and congratulations came hours after Vladimir Putin's well wishes. Alex Prochet, ABC News, Washington.